I'm Pat Roy.
And I'm Kyle Justice.
And together we're
the Creation Guys. All right.
Good morning, Kyle. How are you?
Good. A little early, but glad to be here.
You're looking good. You're looking good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, you didn't sleep really well?
I slept really good. Yeah.
Oh, good. All right. Awesome. Well, welcome to another episode of The Backlot. And Kyle, this is, we call it The Backlot because you and I, as we're making productions and all of the years that we've been in the creation movement and all that, we've got some great things sitting in our backlot. We've got some very cool things. And so today we're going to bring something out of the backlot. Now, one of the things that we did recently was a documentary.
We've done a lot of documentaries, but
well, we did a specific, this kind of
the more recent project was a documentary.
Yes.
We didn't do a game show or, a kids show, but it was a documentary.
Right. Can you tell the people what the documentary was?
Oh, yeah. Were you hinting at something? Well, yes. We did a documentary that looked into the whole flat Earth movement in the last 3-4 years. It's gained a lot of popularity, and we felt like it was important to take a look more into this and why are people believing it, and what are the scientific and the biblical case that would actually come up and say, well, let's take another look at this. So it's been exciting. It's been a really cool project, well received. So
it's been more of a journey than I ever thought it was going to be. Kyle.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I mean, so much more of a journey than I thought. Matter of fact, when we began this, I didn't even really understand why flat earthers believed that the Earth was flat. As we got more and more into this, I began to realize that Christians are really serious about this. I mean, they believe that to accept the round Earth is really to kind of compromise with the world, right?
Yeah.
And so,
oh, totally. And like last night, I was at a birthday party. And one of the guests, I know him, and he came out to me and goes, hey, I want to buy the documentary. And I'm like, why? And he goes, well, I have a friend who believes in it. And so you have a lot of people that are wanting to know more and how to engage people who believe in the flat Earth. And I think we did a pretty good job putting it together. And what we discovered was, man, there's so much more we could have covered, right?
Yeah, right. Well, and the documentary is almost 2 hours long, and it's amazing. We had to cut a lot out to get it down to that. By the way, towards the end of production, we came across some photos and some video online, and wow, I looked at it, and we began to do a little bit of research, and we ended up actually putting a little segment in our documentary. Kyle, I've actually got that. Can I show it to our audience?
Yeah, let's take a look. Pat, we've taken a look at a lot of the main proofs that flat earthers use for flat Earth.
Right, but Kyle, there's a lot of other issues that I don't think most people have ever thought through. So let's check those out.
All right.
There's a 630 square mile estuary in southern Louisiana known as Lake Pontchartrain. In May of 2017, a man by the name of Lance Caraccioli photographed the Lake Pontchartrain transmission lines that stretched 16 miles from Laplace to Manchac. As you can see, these lines are a monument to the curvature of the Earth. A little further to the east, when on their way to New Orleans, travelers crossed this body of water on one of the most amazing bridges in the world, the 24-mile-long Lake Pontchartrain Causeway. Again, Lance's images capture the shape of the Earth. Since then, the geometry of the causeway has been profiled by collecting Earth-centered, Earth-fixed coordinates collected with high-precision GPS by Jesse Kozlowski, modeled in 3D by Walter Bislin, and photographed from 155-foot elevation by Lance. These three techniques agree. The shape of the Earth is clearly round. You can find more imagery by Lance on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Soundly.
So there you go. And joining us right now is Lance himself. Lance, welcome to the Backlot.
Pat, thank you. Appreciate it. Hi, Kyle.
Hey, Lance, good to see you.
Lance, thanks so much for being here. And, it's kind of cool because we've talked a lot over the last couple of months, and I would love to hear from you because you've really invested a lot of time debunking the flat Earth. How did you even get involved in this to begin with?
There was more to it than flat Earth at the time. There was a lot of other stuff like the Nibiru, stuff that goes off in the background of the flat Earth scene as well. Just any type of conspiracies really all lead to these. It just depends on how deep down the rabbit hole you go. But if you go deep enough, you'll get to flat Earth eventually. And flat Earth is one of those things that just seems to be so obviously wrong that it's an easy place to kind of to get in there and to show people the truth.
Wow, that's amazing. So why do you think people are so much into these conspiracies?
That's a good question. It's an open question that a lot of people have asked. Yeah. And I think it really comes down to them wanting to feel like they have some type of deep understanding that the rest of us don't have. Mm-hmm. A sense of feeling enlightened about the world. Unfortunately, the enlightenment they should be seeking is not there.
Yeah.
Right. Matter of fact, Lance, I was listening to some experts talk about flat Earth, and they said one of the reasons that people get so deep into the flat Earth is because they want to feel like they've got a special message, something special, something that nobody knows. And then basically it was a secular person saying that, and then they went on to say, no, you know what's reality is that we aren't special, we don't have special. But I begin to think about, as Christians, we actually are created with a purpose, and we actually do have a special message to get out. But we've got to make sure that we're focusing on the right things and the right truths, right? And so as Christians, the truth is all about Christ, right? It's all about Christ. And we do have a special purpose and a special reason for living. It's just we've got to make sure that we're focusing on the right thing.
Exactly. Also, truth is truth. It's objective. There's only one truth. So there's no way that God's going to tell us, something that's not true in his Bible. So my thoughts have always been your personal interpretation of the Bible is not the right way to go about this, right? You have to also take into account the actual real world facts on the ground that we know about. And in your interpretation has to stay in line with, what is actually true, we know to be true.
Right, exactly. So now tell us about the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway and also the transmission lines. How did you even start photographing and videoing these things? How did that come about?
Oh, man. So that's a good story. So it actually goes all the way back to my channel. So originally I started my channel and I thought I'm going to do some little math problems on a piece of paper and I'm going to end flat Earth. That's all I have to do. They'll see the logic behind this, right? Well, how naive I was. I realized quickly that math and reasoning through things wasn't necessarily going to work. And I thought that probably the better approach would be more intuitive observations. And while I was thinking about that, I happened to run across the transmission lines. And I was very much like on a daily basis, like thinking, like closing my eyes and like imagining the scenarios I'd have to find to actually be able to photograph the curvature of the Earth. And it just happened to be in line with a trip down to New Orleans that I took. And I saw the transmission lines and I said, I think I can see the curvature right there. And sure enough, I went and got a camera, put some magnification on it, and I photographed for the first time the curvature of the Earth for my first time. And it went from there.
Right. Matter of fact, Lance, one of the things that I see all of the time on so many sites where flat earthers are posting comments and stuff, I always hear them say the words, water is always flat. Water doesn't bend. And so lately what I've been doing is just been posting literally just your picture. Matter of fact, let me pull it up real quick. Here's a picture of it right there. And basically they say, hey, water doesn't bend. And so without any comment, I will just literally post that. And to me, it's just such a clear curvature of the Earth and how water does bend, right?
It is. It's really obvious. And the thing is that you don't have to have a magnification, right? You can go out there and you can actually see it with your eyes. With 20/20 vision, you can actually see the curvature. You might not know what you're looking at because it's so small in your field of view, right? But if you actually put magnification on it, see the curvature, and then take it away and look with your eyes, you go, wow, yeah, I can actually see it. That's amazing. And so that's the thing that I invite people to do. Just come out here, I'll even meet you down there and we'll go take some photographs.
Hey, let's do it.
Yeah, man. Hey, let's
all right.
I'm ready.
We're going to come.
Okay. I'm going to hold you to it.
So now, Lance, I noticed one of the things that you've said is that you can see it clearly with your eye, but I notice a lot of times when they're refuting it, basically they show a camera angle where they're up like this instead of shooting like you are. They're actually shooting up, and then they say, look, the bridge actually looks flat. Well, what's going on with that?
Well, let's say you're about to do a project at home, right? You're going to build a doghouse, and you wanted some straight lumber. If you went to Home Depot, right, and you went and found a 2x4, what would you do? The first thing everybody does, they pick it up, and they look down the edge of it to see if it's straight or not. And why do we do that? That's because whenever things are, across your field of view, it's hard to see slight curvature like that. But whenever you line it all up and put it in line, you can see, hey, that board's curved, I don't want that one. Or that board's straight, I want that one. Same thing with the causeway, same thing with the transmission lines. Whenever you line it up to where all the curvatures in one little sliver of your field of view, you can actually see the curvature. And that's what people need to do. So I think a lot of times what happens is you have people that they have this cognitive bias that they want the earth to be flat. And so they look for observations that match what they want to see. And unfortunately, a lot of those observations, if you actually take the time to analyze it, will show that in fact does show the curvature as well. It's just not as obvious because you're not on the edge of it. You're looking down on it, or you're looking slightly at an angle from way up high. And that makes it a lot harder to see the curvature, but it's still there. And in a lot of those photographs, you can show that it's still there.
Right. The photographs are really amazing when you look at them. Now, you'd think that you present this evidence of these really cool images, and people go, all right. I think your point is well made, and they accept it. Is that what's been happening?
No. I wish it were that way, right? I mean, this is kind of whenever I took the first photograph, it was the same exact experience I had when I did that first math problem on a piece of paper. Oh man, I'm just going to show them this, and this is going to be over. But it just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. It takes a lot of work and effort and a lot of one-on-one conversations, which I have done. And the people typically that I talk to one-on-one have a lot better reaction to me than whenever I talk to them as a mob. Whenever I talk to just a group of people, I don't know why they think that I'm their enemy, but I'm not. I'm not their enemy. And whenever they talk to me one-on-one, they realize that. So.
Right. Well, and that's a great way to say it, right? Is a lot of times the two groups, you've got the round earthers, you've got the flat earthers, and boy, I just see them going for it online with each other and just ripping each other apart. And boy, it saddens me, especially as Christians, when you've got Christian brothers, right? I think it's okay to attack ideas. That's something that we've been working on.
Yes.
But as brothers, we should also have unity and really be kind of challenging one another out of love, right? It says truth and love, so we've got to have both.
Certainly, I totally agree with that. I mean, the positive approach is definitely, and the loving approach is definitely the only way to get through to people. If you're going to approach them with a hammer, they're going to fight you back.
Right.
And that's exactly the way that some of them take it. They think I'm walking in with a hammer when I'm really not. But the only way to let them know that I'm not is to have a one-on-one genuine conversation with them.
From what I understand with the photos, that they think maybe they might be doctored or they're not real. Is that
right? Let me switch over to one of the photos. And again, Lance, I've been posting this online whenever somebody says that water cannot bend. I've been posting your photo. Let's switch over to that real quick. Okay, so I would love for you for just a moment to refute the way that they're saying that this photo has been doctored. And when you look at it, when you look at the bridge, you see this really steep angle. And of course, when you drive on the bridge, you don't go up this huge angle like that and then drop back down. And so when they look at this, they say, well, obviously this has been doctored to try and put a bend into this photo. While I've got it up on the screen, Lance, can you kind of explain, can you walk us through why is there such an angle on your photo there?
Yeah, it's the same thing I was talking about earlier. Looking down the edge of a board, you can see a slight curvature in it, and it looks obvious, right? It looks way bigger than it normally does when you look down that edge of the board. It's the same thing with the causeway. So that hump right there is about a mile long. And if you look at the little posts, the mile markers on the edge, those are actually 1/10 of a mile markers. So each one of those little posts right on the edge is a 1/10 of a mile. That should give you a concept or an idea of just how much distance is smashed into just a few pixels on that image. And it's just basically geometry, right? I mean, that's what it is.
Okay, so I'm glad to hear you say that, because I actually saw one site where he said that he had contacted you, and for some reason he misunderstood, I think, and thought that there was a mile in between each one of those posts. And then he started counting cars, and he said, hey, there's not enough cars to be in a mile. But when you explain that it's a 1/10 of a mile, and I can actually see the taillights there, you begin to realize that 1/10 of a mile works. Matter of fact, that's not taillights I'm seeing, is it? It's actually lights on the bridge there. So
the buildings on the side, those are called utility vaults.
Yes.
And those are roughly a mile apart.
So those are a mile apart. Okay. And then, so when you're saying a 1/10 of a mile, are these little markers?
Yes. The little signs that are right at the edge of the bridge. Exactly. Those are all 1/10 of a mile apart.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that really shows how the perspective is. And then these are a mile apart.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
And so let me tell you this. Let me go back to what you said about their objections, because they've asked, they've brought up a lot of objections over the course of the past 2 years. And each time they brought up an objection, I went out and answered that objection. Now, I finally thought that, I would do this will end it forever, end all the objections forever type live stream. And I spent the weekend and I went to 3 Lakeway Center, which is where the Marriott Hotel is where I took that photograph. And I did a live stream for 10 hours over 2 days, zooming in and out 2 different cameras. There were a whole bunch of other people there. So there was a bunch of other guys with cameras, P1000s and telescopes. They were there taking photographs as well. We also have binoculars. And we invited people to show up. We invited flat earthers to come, and they didn't. Unfortunately. But the point is that there's no way that you can doctor 10 hours worth of live stream on YouTube. It's just not a possibility.
Right. Yeah.
Live.
Okay. So a live stream, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. So there's not a way you can be doctoring that in real time.
Exactly. How do you doctor that? You can't. So I will just state emphatically that I've never doctored any of my images. There are some images that I've taken artistic license to just because of art, but those aren't the ones I present as evidence of a globe Earth. And I would point everyone to the 10-hour live stream. I mean, it's still on my channel. It's still up. It's called GET 2019, and I basically just took 10 hours and actually kind of did a broadcast where Jesse was calling in on Google Hangouts, and we were talking about his work while he was doing his work. And so there was a bunch of us there, and we were all doing it live. And we did that for the sake of just saying, hey, look, this is genuine. Come here and see it for yourself. It's really that simple.
Hey, that's the best thing about 10 hours of sitting out there doing a 10-hour
That's actually
broadcast.
really, let me make this point too. That's actually really the best point to make, is that when it comes to validating other people's work, it doesn't require you to believe my work, and you shouldn't. That's just not how reason works, right? You should say, okay, it's highly likely that his work is right. Let me see if I can reproduce it, and then go there and reproduce it. I mean, that's the simplest way for you as an individual to verify that what you're seeing is genuine.
Yeah. And that's what you've done. You said you invited people who believe in the flat Earth to come out and join you, and you said that nobody did?
No, they didn't come, unfortunately.
Wow.
The only guy that was ever willing to meet me down there, I won't use his name, but he, us having one-on-one conversations and just having genuine conversations. So I think I was part of it. I wasn't the whole reason, but he eventually became a globe earther. So wow. I don't even want to call it a globe earther. He just stopped being a flat earther, I should say.
That's a good way to put it. Okay, so now you've worked with a couple other guys. You've worked with Jesse and Walter. Who are they, and what did they do?
Okay, so Walter saw my work, and he was like, if I actually built a 3D model of this in 3D software and rendered it, what would it look like? And so that's what he did. He built a 3D model of the causeway, which is amazing. The amount of work this guy put in is just unbelievable. I can't even imagine how much time it took him. So he built a 3D model of the causeway. He put it on a model of a sphere, basically the size of the radius of Earth, and then he rendered it. And sure enough, it looks like my photographs. And as a matter of fact, that's what we would call a prediction, right? I mean, he actually provides the model that predicts what my photograph should look like if I went there to that location with the same focal length, et cetera, et cetera. And my photograph does, in fact, validate that model, which is a rough approximation of the globe. And then Jesse took it further, a step further, because it's real easy at that point for someone to say, oh, well, that's just optics, just then the optics just happen to match the model. And so Jesse took it a step further, and what he did was he actually went out and did a GPS profile of the bridge. And for people that might not be familiar, GPS underneath the hood is based on a Cartesian coordinate system. So it's an X, Y, and Z value coordinates that ultimately get translated to latitude and longitude and elevation. But if you just take those raw X, Y, and Z values, well, you can just plot them back in a graph, just like you would in a graphing calculator. And when you do that, you see the profile of the bridge. And there is actually still a page up on Walter's site where he has my photograph with Jesse's plotted coordinates laid on top of it. And again, they verified the model. They verified the globe. So to me, it's like, it's a full circle, and it should be very influential to people to look at it, to actually give it an honest chance and analyze what they're looking at and understand what they're looking at. It's really hard to say that it's not a globe at that point.
That's interesting. I know that we've run in, since doing the documentary, a couple of engineers, and they point out, it's like, hey, we have to use a round Earth to actually plan out and engineer things on Earth. If we did that with a flat Earth, it wouldn't work. And I mean,
Right.
You look at that bridge, they had to have figured out that, hey, for 24 miles? The bridge?
It's about 24 miles.
Yeah. I mean, they
Yeah.
had to engineer the bridge with the curvature in mind, I would think, right?
I don't think they actually had to think too much about the curvature, other than the Great Circle Route.
Yeah.
The Great Circle Route they had to keep in mind, because the bridge does lay on a Great Circle Route, which is the shortest distance between any 2 points on the surface of the sphere. It's a Great Circle Route. And so when that aspect of it, they probably did pay attention to the globe Earth. But whenever you're talking about scales of a couple hundred feet, right, that curvature is not even millimeters. It's so small that they don't really have to think about it too much, because it sits within the error range. Unless you're talking about super high precision like LIGO, which we have a LIGO in Livingston Parish, Louisiana, which is the Gravitational Wave Observatory. Those guys had to take the curvature of the Earth into account, because they're talking about like proton width precision that they have to account for.
Wow.
And the only way to do that is to take every single variable into account. And the curvature of the Earth is one of those. They have a 4-kilometer long vacuum tube shooting a laser down it. And if they didn't take curvature of the Earth into account, it wouldn't hit its target. And then the other thing is the Large Hadron Collider. They had to take the curvature of the Earth into account for that device as well. So there are structures where they do have to take the curvature of the Earth into account explicitly.
Right now, the thing, Lance, that I think I've realized about this is, here you've shot this video, you've taken photographs. We haven't shown really, except for the clip that we showed, the transmission lines. Instantly, flat earthers show that camera angle from way up where you can't see the curvature, and then they look at your photograph and they dismiss it And it just goes back to the theory that I've got. And Kyle, I think this is what we found as we've done this, is how do you know when evidence is valid? Or here's the way it goes. There's no valid evidence that shows that the Earth is round. Well, how do you know when a piece of evidence is valid is when it doesn't show the Earth to be round. So it's almost like circular reasoning.
Circular logic.
Right. And so
Yes.
I think that's been the frustrating thing for me. So you've got these videos and these photos and all of that, and instantly they show a picture of it from up above and show that it looks flat, and then they dismiss it, and then it's almost like they don't even check into the rest of the work that you and Jesse and Walter have done, right? Because if they got more into it, they would understand, all the science behind it, but it's like it's instantly dismissed, and then they don't even talk about it.
On the grounds of circular reasoning, right? And that's the hard thing is that some people have an intuitive understanding of circular reasoning without knowing what circular reasoning is, and they intuitively understand. Okay, I'm trying to prove. Well, I'm trying to prove my conclusion using my conclusion as evidence, and they don't use it. People won't use that intuitively understand that that's not good thinking. But then there's just some people that don't understand that. They don't understand that circular reasoning isn't a good way a good approach, and it's hard to convince them with logic and reason. It has to be more of an intuitive, subjective, emotional type thing, and that's why I think for those type of individuals, it has to be more about a one-on-one communication, walking them through a bunch of things, in a one-on-one situation, or them, them themselves coming out here and experiencing it. It doesn't have to be here. There's a number of places you can go. There's a number of things you could do. You could watch a double sunset with a drone. I mean, that's the easiest thing that anybody could do on a daily basis. Just get you a little cheap drone and watch a double sunset. Watch the sunset, shoot your drone up, watch it set again. How does that work on the flat Earth? Well, it can't. I mean, that's an intuitive thing that people should be able to tactilely, understand just by being there and controlling the drone themselves. So that's the type of things I try and approach it with, because if we start talking about apologetics and reason and logic, we lose a lot of people that way.
That's the thing I love about what you've
done. Even though it's valid.
The thing that I love about what you've done is you started on paper, but then you went out and you did something. And right. I love the fact that you're encouraging people, hey, go out and do it too. I mean, it's not limited to just me and you. It's everyone can go do those experiments.
Right. Okay, you know what, guys? We've got about 2 minutes left. Lance, you're a Christian. Why do you even think this is important as a Christian? We're all Christians. Why is this even a topic we should be talking about?
Well, it's I guess I'm just going to offend a few people here, but it's a lie, right? And we shouldn't be following lies. I mean, that's Christians know that. We should be following the truth, avoiding the delusion, and that's really what it comes down to. I think I have a moral obligation to show people what I know to be true,
right?
Especially because I have the kit and the ability to do it, so I should share that. That's the way I feel about it.
Right, exactly. Well, I'll tell you, it's been cool to see your pictures and your videos. It's all a part of the documentary that we've been producing called Faith on the Edge. And Kyle, what do they do if they want to check it out? There's trailer and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. There's we have the Creation Guys website, thecreationguys.com.
Now it's the
creationguys.com. And they're right on the front page. There's the documentary there, or there's a section that you can pull down menu that says projects that we're working on. And there's links there to either video on demand so you can rent or buy it. And then there's also the DVD that you can order. So a couple different ways you can watch a trailer and some bonus segments and go from there.
Now, not only can you see Lance's work, but we also tackled the biblical case. Mm-hmm. We also had Dr. Danny Faulkner on the documentary. We also had General Charlie Duke, who is an astronaut on Apollo 16. Also, Victor Brewer invited us to a weather balloon launch, and we got to be there when we sent a 360-degree camera. How many miles? Almost 20-something.
23 miles, I think.
That's right, up into the atmosphere. That's really cool, too. So, again, you can check all that out at thecreationguys.com. All right. Thanks for being here in our backlot.
Excellent. We'll see you next time. Bye.